Okay, Dr. Theo Paredes, we wanted to welcome you here to Indiana University, Kelley School of Business. And we're particularly delighted that you're here to support us and provide us some information for our Globase class. And you're just a perfect representative of the multiple aspects of Peru that are of interest to us because of your diverse background as an anthropologist, your businesses there in Peru, and your non-government organization. So could you tell us a little bit about those three areas? That'll help us understand a little bit more of your perspective. Could tell us a little bit about your experience in the anthropology of the culture of Peru, your foundation there and how it serves the people, and then your work here in America, the art of living work as an indigenous teacher.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. As you know, Peru is one of the very important countries in South America by the history that has been happening there since the arrival of Columbus in America. And we might say that in South America there are three countries which are high populated by the natives: Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru. So in that sense, there is big culture that is still there in Peru, and of course the economy and the social division, even the policy of the country can show that Peru and some other countries are in a process to be a nation. The integration of the people, perhaps in the social science, the discussion of the last 10 years has been about the identity of our nation, of our country. And I think we are in that process. So as an anthropologist, I was able to know well the country in different aspects and trying to work with these different people in Peru, because we assume that most of the population are Indians, if it was the wrong word that they has been calling to the natives. But even in Peru, there are different tribes, different groups of people that has been inhabited for thousands of years in the north, in the central, and in the middle part of Peru. So even being their natives, they have their own particular characteristics, their own particular culture, their own particular way to see things. As an anthropologist, I have been working in the rural development projects. That was my main concern for the last maybe 20 years, and that's why I has been found a non-profit organization which name is Pokenkanchay, which means in the native language where the light is born, or where the light begins. And the main purpose of this non-profit organization is to recovering different aspects of the Peruvian native cultures based on basically in the South Andean area of Peru. We have been having much interest in which is now alternative medicine, some kind of ancient technology, and also in the different kind of approaches that has been done for social organization. And this is what all these years that I has been having as a worker in that fields that allowed me to come here and share some particular ways of how these ancient people has been able to perceive reality, which to me is, I do believe, the core to study all these ancient cultures, particularly because I was able to be in a different events. In December, I was in Venezuela, in the Margaret Islands, in an event which was named as the second meeting of science and technology. And most of the people, they are talking about the new inventions and the new resources, whatever, but always there is a topic that in most of these world conventions are being always touched, which is ecology and sustainability. But talking about it, we can see that how we arrive to these concepts has been done because we knew that using our technology we has been create some kind of imbalance in the ecological aspects of the planet, and also we has been create some kind of jeopardizing situation for us. However, these ancient cultures 5,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, they had a particular perception of the nature in which we were part of it, and they already were not only talking, discussing, or proposing something about ecology, they were already acting in harmony, and they were having all these principles of ecology already there. If you see particularly in Peru the amount of terraces that they has been developed for farming, and you see that after 2,000 years a terrace is being still using with good results, I think you don't need any explanation for sustainability. So this is the example. So those are the kind of things that I am sharing in different talks here in the States with different people who are interested in to see if there is other ways to approach, to take from these ancient people and incorporate in our models to social organization. Great.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paredes, for joining us today. My question is in regards to, well, firstly, let me back up. We're going to be taking a group of students, 20 students from the MBA program here at Kelley to Peru. And we would like to hear from you your perspective on what it's like to do business in Peru, what kind of things we're going to encounter as we go there, and what kind of things we should look out for or be sensitive to in terms of the Peruvian culture.
Well, many people has been taking, particularly in South America, the word global or globalization in a wrong way, thinking that the developed countries are going to come and invade and start to take all the resources from there or so on. I do believe that the global word means that for the first time we are beginning to see this planet and all of us as a unity in which we are interdependent, and the way how we can give sustainability in this sense is to work all together. Peru is a very interesting country in many ways. Just to say that Peru is the second country in the world in biodiversity creates different conditions for different purposes. One of the biggest industries in Peru has always been the resources that we have in the ocean, mining, some kind of particular fine woods in the Amazons, but now tourism is another one that is really increasing as an industry in Peru. The process of the economy in Peru, I think, has been growing and shifting through the years. But now with this process of globalization, I think that there is a very clear division in terms of business in Peru, which I might put emphasis. One are the regular business and big businesses like in mining or like let's say even farming products such as asparagus, mangoes, and so on. But the other possibility that I recall is to see the small businesses in Peru, which now is not more than to increase the capacity of these small producers, small handcrafts makers, and try to find different markets, particularly with this new agreement that Peru has been signed of the free trade with the United States. And so in terms of opportunity, I do believe that this is these two different levels. Even also not necessarily to have these small producers to start to open in economical niches by themselves. But I think this is time to maybe start to put all of them together in some kind of co-ops or corporations so they can respond to a bigger demands, not only in the States, but also in places like China or Europe.
One more question. Many of us, I grew up in Peru, and so I have familiarity with the culture because of my family, but a lot of us in the class have never had any exposure, maybe even outside of the United States. Could you give us a little bit of advice, maybe any advice that you would give to a group of MBA students that are going to be going for the first time, maybe even outside of the country?
Well, the first thing that I might say is that Peruvian people is a very friendly people, and friendly, creative, and I think enthusiastic. But something that most of the regular Peruvian people doesn't know is the rules of the international market. And that's something that I think is very important to put emphasis into, such as perhaps deadlines to reach when you have a compromise, control of quality that we call now ISO 14,000 or 12,000, whatever, and a permanent, I think, overview in terms to fulfill that. I think that's the main issue. In the other way is, of course, the regular systems that I don't know how they're going to affect in terms of credit or the market and so on. One of the main problems that I has been confronted in my experience to do a rural development was infrastructure, particularly roads to transport different kind of products. But now there is a big effort in the government that they are doing that kind of investment. But basically, I do believe that if the Peruvian people now, with big efforts of the government, are trying to be more, if the word is properly, serious in terms of making business, and particularly to expand the business for out of the country.
So my experience in Peru was that I lived there for 2 years as a missionary, and I got to live in Lima and also in the provinces outside of Lima. And I noticed that the culture is very important to the people there and everything that they do. What are some key takeaways that our group can take with us when we go to Peru about the culture there?
Well, I think as an anthropologist, what I learned is that the first main rule is to respect the people. Don't go with the idea that we know everything or we are the teachers and we are going just to change their life from one day to another, even with some benefits. Once I was working in a project in which we were trying to change some kind of native variety of corn with another hybrid. And the hybrid really was with much better benefits in terms of production. So after 1 year of campaign and having a successful ending, we saw that we were really done our job. Next year, when we come back to try to do the same thing, the people denied to do it. And by the end, when we were asking why was it, because they make profit about it, he says, the taste of the corn is not the same of the other one. So there is a lot of variables that can change some of our ideas in terms of just of profit or business. So it's interesting in that way to respect, to allow them to talk, to know what they really want or what is the understanding that they have in what they are trying to put or invest their own time and effort. Because sometimes we come with an idea, people many times, particularly poor people, they don't have nothing to lose, so they accept. But they don't accept with really interest to put their effort into that.
Thanks. And I think also our group, we're going to be consulting with smaller businesses and trying to help them export to the United States. How do you think our efforts can help the people in Peru, their lives, and kind of the communities of Peru?
To me, I think now all these people with different kind of approaches that science and technology has been giving, they are very well motivated. So there is a discussion in one way that how we can preserve our culture, and the other one is that you cannot preserve just putting TV or whatever because fashion and demands for cars or TV, whatever, is already put in there. So my idea is that in terms of business and economy or production, there is what is being called the chain, the productive chain, from the beginning, from the product to the end, and put it on the market. So I think in some way, some of the people or the duties of the government might be giving some education, some control of quality, and so on. And then it's going to come another agent, which is going to be the one who is going to put this final product into the market. So to me, one of the things that we have been confronted before is that there are big markets like in Europe or United States or even China, whatever, that when you come and you see some product, sometimes you ask for thousands of them. But the capacity to produce sometimes doesn't allow it. So then you are out of the market. So it was one of our particular, I was one dealing with some kind of business into that, and somebody came and says, we would like to bring quinoa from Peru. And he says, well, would you like to get for me something like 100 pounds of quinoa a month? That was something that we never even thought to produce that amount. So I think something that you have to put your creativity into, and I think all these economical changes are that now maybe the economical markets or economical niches in the market are more selective. So maybe you don't need to be into this big massive production, but maybe you can just start to pick up less production, but maybe more variety in different aspects.
Another question. In terms of the economic crisis, what's going on right now in the markets, we hear a lot about what the impact is here in the States or in the European market or the Asian markets. Could you maybe comment on what the impact has been in Peru, what you've seen, and maybe what you can expect?
That's a very interesting question, because in some way, we don't have factories in Peru such as General Motors or something like that, that you will say that from day to night they are going to put on the street 20,000 people or 3,000 people or 4,000 people, you know. We don't have. The biggest employee organization in Peru is the government. So it's going to have, of course, impact, because some of the companies are going to reduce employees. The main export business are going to reduce because the buyers and demand is going to get lower. But in some other way, there is a lot of people who I might say that live in an area that most of their life has been under an economy of just self-supporting. So the impact into them that has been always been the self-supporting is not going to be really big, except for some of the products that came from the cities or let's say from the exportations. Now they are discussing, of course, the policy of taxes in terms of raise up some taxes or give some kind of protection policies to the local producers. But I think this is going to be no more than just a time in which they are going to start to make these rearrangements, because you have a local market, but in some other way we never expecting to, like there are some huge markets that has been opening, like China perhaps, that even if they reduce some of the buyers, still be a big market. So I think it's a moment to make rearrangements. However, I think that these rearrangements not only have to be done by the market, by the demand, or by the government. These rearrangements has to be done by the consciousness of the people itself. In Peru, there has been done some kind of surveys about what are you going to do in this situation of the crisis. And the answers were really surprised, because 95, 98% they were talking about to work more, to find a second job. But none of them were saying to start to reprogram and to reduce my expenses. So that's another way to see things. That I have a level of spending money, so I don't want to reduce that, but sometimes if I have 3 cars, what do I have to? With one I can handle my situation, and so on. Or particularly in my everyday life. There are some things that not necessarily are vital or important. So it will bring to another way to face that crisis.
I had one question. It's more centered around, the Globase class, the MBA class that you're, going to give a presentation at. And I'm curious as far as what your presentation is going to be about, and what are you really hoping to, share with the class, and what are you hoping to impart, upon them to kind of help them?
Oh, basically, I want to place Peru in terms of time and space, to have you a general view of what Peru is, give you a little explanation about the geography of Peru, and this how in this huge variety of environments, as I was telling before, that Peru is the second country in biodiversity. People has been respond to their own needs, and how is the social structure in Peru today that has been come from the ancient cultures like the Inca culture, to understand more the people, and then talk and maybe give a time for questions about how this new approach of business or interest can be leading in Peru.
I know you've kind of touched a little bit on a few things from, I think, the questioning that we've been giving. But how do you think, what would be, Peruvian businesses, Peruvian people, what's their main advantages in the world economy, in the world market right now?
Well, that's very interesting, because Peru, not being maybe a huge country, has been a very important country to the history of man. Something that we cannot deny is perhaps that we eat potatoes almost every day. And the big contribution, or one of the biggest contributions of Peru and the ancient Peruvians to the world, was the potato. also corn. There was a discussion between if the corn has been grown and developed in Central America or Peru. Now we know that in Peru there has been found the most primitive corn 7,000 years ago. So in terms of farming, in terms of nutritional products, in terms of medicines, in terms of one of the main products that even was one of the reasons of a war between Peru and Chile was something that Peru in the 19th century was having as the manure of the islands for farming and agriculture. It was a big thing of exploitation during that time. Of course, mining was another thing. Even today, I don't know if you have been reading that there is a kind of legal problem because in front of Florida there has been found a ship with a huge amount of gold. They say that the amount of gold is 300 tons. And there was a gold from Peru that was going to Spain. So now they're thinking that if Peru has some part in this treasure, the government of the state has a treasure, and also Spain. But the gold was coming from Peru, and they say that the amount of money is something like $500 million. So we are not talking about just pennies. So one of the things that now is coming in as a very important thing from Peru is the possibility to find more medicines in the Amazons. Fibers, textile fibers like alpaca is another big contribution that Peru is having. And of course, the regular mining, jewelry, and I do believe food in different products that has not been well known yet in the world market.
I guess a follow-up question to that, on the counter side, what do you think Peru's biggest challenges or maybe disadvantages, but I guess challenges I think is a better word, for the country as a whole, but specifically from a business aspect, what do you think are the challenges that they face?
I do believe that one will be a good education. That's, I think, the best thing that we should be taking care about, and infrastructure. And infrastructure because Peru is in the Andes and is a very irregular geography. So making roads and all of these kind of things are kind of more expensive than in a flat surface, put all these conditions. And educations in terms to be able to deal with the best possibilities in technology, in organic productions, in also dealing with other partners as a business activities. In that way, I think that we should be looking for a responsibility. But responsibility not as a commandment in which you have to really play a role in that way. I think the word responsibility comes from the root response. So I think the big issue is to create people to be able to give answers, to respond to the demands and to the compromises that they might do into this new century.